They said family always comes first, until I realized I was always coming last. For years, I gave everything I had, thinking love meant sacrifice and silence. But the moment I stopped giving, they stopped calling. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about reclaiming the parts of yourself you gave away piece by piece, just to be seen. If you've ever felt like the invisible backbone of your family, like your worth was measured only by what you could offer, this story might feel painfully familiar. At ErasedMe, we share real, raw stories about being overlooked, underestimated, and finally, choosing yourself. Subscribe if you believe some endings are actually new beginnings, and some silences speak louder than apologies. The grocery bags cut into the grooves of my fingers as I balanced them on my hip, the front door creaking open to a house filled with the scent of fried onions and bleach. I had just wrapped up a 10-hour shift, skipped lunch, and still made the extra stop for almond milk, olive oil, and the specific crackers Mom insisted were the only ones she could stomach. No one looked up when I walked in. The TV murmured from the living room, the volume just loud enough to drown out acknowledgement. I set the bags on the counter and exhaled. My wrists throbbed. "You get my message?" Dad's voice sliced through the silence from behind me. I turned halfway, still catching my breath. "About what?" He stepped into the kitchen, arms folded like a judge ready to deliver sentencing. "Your mother and I talked. If you're not going to contribute more around here, maybe you shouldn't be here at all." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. "Step up?" I repeated. "You live on your own, you've got a good job, but this house is struggling. Your brother's still figuring things out. I'm retired. Your mom's not well. Groceries. Utilities. Wi-Fi. Quietly, every month," I said. Tobias didn't even look up from the couch. "She acts like she's doing us a favor." The crackers slipped in the bag, nearly tearing it open. I thought of the receipt still in my coat pocket, $16.48, spent not on myself, but for them. My voice didn't rise. "I'm not acting. I am doing." No one said thank you. Mom appeared in the doorway, arms crossed like punctuation. "We just want everyone to do their part." I'd done more than my part. And still, somehow, it was never enough. I was 16 the first time I paid a utility bill. Mom had overdrawn the account again, third time that month. She stood in the kitchen with a trembling lip and a pile of unopened envelopes in her hand. I didn't say anything. I just slipped her the $86 from my grocery store paycheck. That was supposed to be for my class ring deposit. She kissed my forehead and whispered, "You're such a good girl. You'll always take care of us." It was a simple sentence, but it landed like a brand. A prophecy spoken too casually, too early. I didn't know then how deep it would root itself in my spine. At 17, I started buying the household's cleaning supplies without being asked. At 19, I helped Tobias pay off a speeding ticket before Dad found out. No one thanked me. They just passed me more needs like I was a faucet that never ran dry. By 25, I was covering the Wi-Fi, water, and most groceries. By 28, I was paying off overdraft fees, co-signed loans, even Tobias's therapy sessions, which I hadn't even known I was still being billed for. Every Christmas, he got a new phone. I hadn't upgraded mine in 4 years. Once, Dad's prescription wasn't covered. I spent my entire lunch break crossing town to get it. He didn't even ask how I managed. They said family supports each other like it was a scripture. But somehow, the verse only applied to me. I didn't want praise. I just wanted to be seen. Not as the scaffolding holding everyone up, but as a daughter. I wasn't asking for applause. I just didn't want to be invisible. It started with a sleepless night a week before tax season. The apartment was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I sat at my desk in the dim glow of my old desk lamp, the one Tobias had once mocked for being too college dorm. I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet, not out of spite, but out of desperation for clarity. I listed every transaction from the last 8 months. Utilities. Groceries. Car repairs. Credit card minimums. Co-signed loans. Tobias's therapy bills, the ones I didn't even know I was still paying. Each line came with a date, a reason, and a total. The sheet grew longer than I expected. I stopped midway through to make tea, staring at the kettle like it might offer a different truth. When I finally tallied the bottom, the number blinked up at me, $18,426.17. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared, heart hollow. I hadn't kept this list to shame anyone. I kept it because I needed to see it for what it was, proof that I wasn't exaggerating, that my exhaustion wasn't imaginary. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a service. A silent one. I printed the sheet and taped it above my desk. Not out of anger, but to remind myself that I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't overreacting. Sometimes, when you're gaslit long enough, the truth has to be written in black and white just to feel real again. I didn't show it to anyone. It wasn't for them. It was for me. That night, I looked around my small apartment, the scuffed baseboards, the beige walls, the coffee-stained rug I bought secondhand. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. The weight I carried wasn't just financial. It was generational. Learned. Expected. But now, for the first time, I had named it. And once something has a name, you can start to let it go. The lease was short-term. The carpet was worn, the walls painted a tired beige that looked different depending on the light. But it was mine. I moved in with 2 suitcases, a battered coffee maker, and a bookshelf I spent an hour assembling by myself. The bookshelf wobbled slightly to the left, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I wasn't living for anyone else's comfort. No one offered to help me move. And, oddly, I didn't feel hurt by that. The absence felt like space to exhale, to stretch, to exist without being measured by my usefulness. The first night, I sat cross-legged on the living room floor, eating takeout straight from the box. No plates, no pretense. The silence wasn't eerie, it was kind. No one interrupted. No one needed anything. My phone buzzed with unread messages, long paragraphs from Mom, clipped demands from Dad, vague guilt from Tobias. I turned off notifications. I didn't block them, I wasn't trying to erase them. But I was finally learning the difference between distance and disconnection. In this quiet, I heard myself again. The clink of a spoon against a mug. The rustle of clean laundry I folded for no one but me. The soft thrum of the ceiling fan above my bed, uninterrupted. I started sleeping through the night. 8 uninterrupted hours. On weekends, sometimes 9. There was no applause for this small victory, no witnesses. But I woke up rested, and that was new. This apartment? Humble, imperfect, felt like the first place I'd ever belonged without paying rent and guilt. Here, I wasn't anyone's solution. I was just me. The messages came every other day. Mom's texts were winding and dramatic, full of veiled guilt and exaggerated memories. Remember when we made pancakes on snow days, as if nostalgia could erase debt. Dad's were abrupt, call your mother. Did you check the mail? Tobias only messaged when something broke, followed by a Venmo request. I didn't block them. I just silenced the noise. Let the silence stretch between us like a new language I was learning, one where I didn't need to translate my exhaustion into kindness. My bank account pinged less now. No overdraft warnings. No rushed deposits to cover bills I didn't cause. I started tracking my own expenses for the first time in years. Small things, lavender tea, a new shower curtain, groceries based on my cravings, not anyone else's dietary needs. At night, I cooked real food. Roasted vegetables. Lemon pasta. Nothing frozen, nothing reheated from a family-sized tray. Sometimes, I'd light a candle, not for romance, just for softness. And I stopped checking my phone while I ate. There was no anticipation, no dread about what would be waiting on the screen. Just the warm weight of a blanket on my legs, the sound of rain tapping against the window, and the gentle rhythm of a life no longer dictated by alarms. Some nights, I'd lie in bed listening to the ceiling fans hum and realize, my body wasn't bracing anymore. No adrenaline. No tension in my jaw. Just stillness. And in that stillness, I began to understand something that used to terrify me. Peace isn't earned through sacrifice. It arrives when you stop negotiating for your right to breathe. It had been 3 weeks since I walked away. 3 weeks of quiet dinners, full nights of sleep, and checking my own bank account without flinching. I had begun to breathe like someone who no longer owed oxygen to anyone. Then, on a Wednesday morning, just as I stepped into my office building, my phone buzzed with a message from Dad. Why didn't the card go through? No greeting. No question mark. Just those 7 words, like I'd failed to clock in at a job I never applied for. I didn't reply. I didn't stop walking. I placed my phone face down on my desk and poured coffee like it was any other day. By noon, Tobias had called twice. Then again. And again. On the 4th call, I picked up. Not because I felt guilty, but because I was curious. I wanted to see how far they'd stretch. You knew we needed that money, Tobias snapped. His voice was sharp, as if I'd violated some unspoken contract. I said nothing. You think you can just stop helping and everything's fine? You think you're better than us now, with your little apartment and your spreadsheet? Still, I said nothing. He hung up with a scoff. No goodbye. That night, something in me shifted. I opened my laptop and logged into the county's property records portal. I typed in the address of the house I grew up in, the house I had kept afloat with my paychecks, my skipped lunches, my emotional labor. Pre-foreclosure. Final notice issued. No explanation. No warning. Just the cold truth glowing on my screen. My heart didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. I didn't feel betrayed, I felt confirmed. I had sent $1,300 a month for nearly a year. I'd never seen a mortgage bill. Never asked for one. I just trusted. And now, I saw it clearly. The money didn't go to the bank. It went elsewhere. I closed the tab. I didn't need the details. The truth was loud enough. They hadn't needed a daughter. They needed a system. And that system just broke. The next few days passed in a strange kind of stillness. I knew what was coming. The blame. The panic. The weaponized guilt. And it came right on schedule. Calls from Mom, voicemails laced with tremors. Emails with subject lines like please and urgent. Even a handwritten note arrived, tucked in an envelope with our return address scrawled across it. I didn't open it. Not yet. I wasn't avoiding them. I was waiting. On Sunday afternoon, the sacred time when I knew they'd all be home, I called the landline. It rang twice. Hello? Mom answered, her voice sweet but strained. Put me on speaker, I said. There was a pause, then the soft beep of the speakerphone. In the background, the clink of dishes, the familiar wheeze of the old ceiling fan in the kitchen. Dad cleared his throat. Tobias muttered something unintelligible. I took a slow breath. Where did the money go? Silence. What money? Mom asked, as if the question was foreign. I sent $1,300 every month for nearly a year, I said evenly. The house is in foreclosure. So I'll ask again, where did it go? Another pause. Dad finally spoke. Your mother had dental work. Then the water heater broke. Ethan's car needed repairs. And groceries. It's been a lot. Tobias cut in, sharper. It's not like we went on vacation, okay? Stuff came up. We were going to sort it. Dad added, it's not like we meant to deceive you. Things just got ahead of us. I didn't yell. I didn't even sigh. You never showed me a bill. Never asked if I could afford it. Never offered repayment. You just assumed. We're family, Mom said quietly. You shouldn't need a contract. I nodded slowly, though they couldn't see me. That's the thing. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have my name on the deed. I didn't even have a seat at the table unless I brought something to it. Silence again. I've read the emails. Heard the voicemails. You've called me cold, dramatic, selfish. But I'm not those things. I was your daughter. You turned me into your donor. A long pause. Then Dad's voice, brittle and low. You don't understand. Without you, we're losing everything. I looked out my window at the tree swaying gently outside. No, I said softly. You lost everything the moment you started seeing me as a balance sheet. And then I hung up. Not out of rage. Not out of cruelty. Just completion. After I ended the call, the phone sat face down on the table, screen still lit, vibrating once more, Mom this time. I didn't touch it. Not because I was angry. Because I didn't need to anymore. I reached for the envelope I had avoided for days. The one with our family address in the corner, my name printed in faint ink. It was thinner than I expected. Inside was a final notice, delinquent, default, eviction proceedings, all printed in bold. My name wasn't on the deed. It never had been. But somehow, the letter had found its way to me anyway. Like they needed me to see it. Like they hoped the guilt would be loud enough to pull me back. I folded the letter once, then again, and tore it in half. Not out of rage. There was no fire left in me. Just quiet understanding. This wasn't mine to carry. It never had been. I opened the old family group chat. Years of messages cluttered the thread of photos of birthday cakes I paid for, grocery lists I fulfilled, dry thank yous that felt more like receipts than gratitude. I scrolled until my thumb ached. Then I stopped and typed. I'm not your backup plan anymore. Goodbye. I hit send. Left the group. Blocked them all. Hey Mom, Dad, Tobias. My phone didn't fall silent. It fell still. And there's a difference. Silence waits to be broken. Stillness accepts what's ended. I closed the banking app and opened a different one, an account I'd created months ago but never used. It had no linked payments, no automatic withdrawals, just deposits. Small ones, quiet ones. Until now. This account was mine. Not for anyone's emergencies. Not for anyone's debts. Just for me. I stepped out that afternoon and walked into a boutique I used to pass on my way home, the kind of store I once considered too indulgent, too frivolous for someone like me, someone always preparing for someone else's disaster. Inside, I tried on a pair of soft leather shoes. They weren't on sale. I didn't wait for a discount. I didn't even hesitate. They fit. I paid in full. When I walked out, I didn't feel like I was running away from something. I felt like I was walking toward myself. That night, I made dinner just for one. Lemon garlic chicken, roasted carrots, and a glass of chilled white wine. I lit the candle I'd been saving since last Christmas. Not for guests. Not for an occasion. Just for me. The spreadsheet still hung above my desk, but I no longer needed to look at it. The boundary wasn't in the numbers. It was in the breath I now took, slow, deep, unburdened. They might call it betrayal. Selfishness. Abandonment. Let them. I had given my money, my time, my energy, until I was empty. Now, I had finally given myself something back. A clean goodbye. The dining table was small, just enough for 4 plates and a pitcher of mint water, but it held more than enough. A slow cooker of lentils bubbled gently beside a tray of still warm cornbread. Nora and Gerald argued in the kitchen about whose chili recipe reigned supreme. The room buzzed with soft laughter and clinking spoons. My lemon bars, made from scratch, sat modestly in the center. No one asked what I brought. No one expected more than a seat and a story. We sat on the floor, plates balanced on napkins folded just enough to feel like effort. The conversation flowed in waves, touching on work, weekend markets, and half-finished novels. At one point, someone asked, lightly, "Why don't you ever talk about your family?" I paused, sipping tea that had gone lukewarm. Then I smiled. Some stories are better closed. No one pressed. They nodded and passed the spinach dip. Later that night, after the dishes were rinsed and the laughter faded into the quiet hum of my apartment, I sat by the window with a cup of chamomile tea. The rosemary plant beside me had begun to sprout. Its scent was subtle but strong. I had started planting things again, not just herbs, but habits. On Saturdays, I went to the farmer's market. On Wednesdays, I took yoga. Some mornings, I walked without checking my phone. And in the quiet between it all, I made lists. Books to read. Places to go. At the top, Maine. A place where silence wouldn't be lonely. It would be scenic. I used to think home was shared blood, shared obligation. Now I know better. Home is where I can breathe. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is walk away, not in anger, but in clarity. Narina's journey reminds us that loyalty, though noble, becomes harmful when it is rooted in guilt rather than mutual respect. She gave everything, her time, her money, her presence, believing it would earn her a place in her family's love. But love that is transactional is not love at all, it is dependency in disguise. Her quiet rebellion wasn't loud or dramatic. It came in the form of setting boundaries, learning the language of stillness, and reclaiming what had long been taken from her, her autonomy. It takes courage to step back from those you've spent your life holding up. It takes truth to face that sometimes, blood ties are not bonds, and being needed is not the same as being valued. Through Narina, we see that true freedom doesn't come from severing ties, it comes from releasing expectations that never honored who we truly are. And healing isn't always about fixing the past, sometimes, it's about planting something new in the space it once occupied. In the end, the greatest loyalty is the one we show ourselves. The most daring courage is in choosing peace over obligation. And the most powerful truth is this. Home is not where you're endlessly needed, it's where you're finally allowed to be.